when I was in high school, I became part of the Surfrider Foundation Clean Water Task Force, I believe it was called back then. And they had asked our surf class to take water samples at Cardiff Reef. So before we got to paddle out, we had to take down these little vials, and we would take samples at Cardiff, and we would take one from the ocean directly in front of where we surfed, and then we would go in the lagoon. And when the lagoon was blocked up, we would, hold your nose, go in there. It was it was pretty disastrous, and take samples. And then we got to understand what was happening. We would get these results back from Surfrider, and it was like, hey, that lagoon is in really bad shape. This red light would go off like, oh, okay. So when that thing blows open and that water's flowing out right into the lineup, like probably not a good idea to be out there.
There are very few surfers in modern history who embody both style and substance, like today's guest, Rob Machado. One of the defining figures of the Momentum Generation era, and known as much for his fluid, effortless surfing as for the thoughtful path that he carved through the sport. He spent a decade competing on the World Surf League's Championship Tour, winning multiple events, and even finishing runner-up for the world title in 1995. He famously retired from the Championship Tour in 2001 while still at the height of his surfing abilities, as proven by his career highlight Pipe Masters win the year prior. Since then, he's built a legacy that extends far beyond contest jerseys through influential surf films like The Drifter, forward-thinking surfboard design work, and also a deep commitment to ocean stewardship through the Rob Machado Foundation and also his ongoing work with the Surfrider Foundation. Today, Machado remains one of the most respected figures in surfing, but few people know that his passion for environmentalism and stewardship of the land can actually be traced back to his great-great-great-grandfather, Jose Agustin Machado, who is one of the earliest settlers in Los Angeles, having traveled north from Mexico to help develop the California missions. My name is David Scales for the Surfrider podcast, and I hope that you enjoy better getting to know longtime Surfrider friend and colleague, Rob Machado.
It was my great-great-great-grandfather who traveled up from Mexico. He was actually part of, I'm forgetting his name. It was the, I know you'll know this. The guy who came up and was building all of the missions all of through California. So my great-great-grandfather came with him and was helping build the missions, and he thought California was pretty cool. And then my great-great-grandfather settled in the kind of south, what do you call it? Marina Del Rey, Culver City area. It was a
Yeah.
14,000 acre ranch, which is quite large. And it went from coastal Marina Del Rey all the way up to almost Santa Monica, and then inland all the way to Culver City. So yeah, pretty wild. That was in the early 1800s. And, my family history, my dad grew up in Culver City. He learned how to surf on the beach in Santa Monica. He borrowed a board from Ricky Gregg, and he was a lifeguard, and he used to keep
Yeah.
his board under his tower. My dad was just, I think, 14, 15. He'd get dropped off or take the bus down there, and which was pretty crazy to hear my dad tell me these stories, right? Looking back on. And my dad was quite the adventurer. He did some time in the military prior to Vietnam, and as soon as he got out, he started traveling the world. And he started by driving across the United States. He got on a boat, ended up in England, went across to Germany, like bought a motorcycle in England, rode it around all of England, got to Germany, bought a VW bus and drove it all the way down through the Middle East. And then, I mean, it's crazy. got on another boat, went through the Suez Canal, and ended up in Singapore, and then finally made it to Darwin and ended up in Australia. So this is how I'm connecting the dots. Stay with me.
I'm here.
Uh, yeah. Um, Discovered Australia, traveled down the coast, Gold Coast, Sydney, made friends, fell in love with the place. My dad was a skier and a surfer, so he heard there was snow there, went down south to explore the snow, met my mom on a train, and they chased the winters through Europe. My mom is British, so there was a European connection. Um, and then when the time came, they, to kind of like, oh, like, let's get married, settle down. I think it was during the height of Vietnam, and they came back to California, and things were just felt a little funky. There was a lot of turmoil and stuff going on, and they just left Australia, and they're like, northern beaches, let's go back. So back they went. They lived uh, in a little place close to Manly, close to Curl Beach, above what was it called? Yeah, Beacon Hill. That's right.
Mm.
And that's where I was born. Me and my brother were born. I was born in Manly Hospital, same hospital as Barton Lynch. Me and Barton, love him. And I lived there until I was about three or 4 years old, and then my parents came back to California to check things out, and my grandparents had migrated down south to North County, San Diego, and they went, well, this isn't a bad place to raise some kids. And actually, a little story, when they came back from Australia to California, and they decided they wanted to live here, my dad put in 2 offers on 2 separate houses. One was in Sun Valley, Idaho, and one was in Cardiff by the Sea.
Wow.
And they just said, whichever one gets accepted, that's where we're going.
Wow.
Could have been a snow guy.
Yeah, it turns out Sun Valley, Idaho would have been a great option too.
Right. It's a
Yeah.
win-win. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, could have changed my path in life.
Completely.
Right.
So let's go back to that 14,000 acre ranch. What
Yeah.
what was it being used for? And I mean, did he just parcel some of it off over time repeatedly, or what is the land? What was it being used for then? What's it being used for now?
So, back then you had children. Those were your ranch hands. It was a ranch. It was a functioning ranch. There was cattle, horses, and he had 14 kids.
Oh my God.
This is Jose Agustin Machado. And he had 14 kids that spanned over the course, spread out across 25 years. And over that course of time, you know, people started moving into that area and it started growing and growing. And that was his form of, that was his bartering. That was that was his way of his trade. It was like, hey, take 100 acres over there, right? And he had to get the land surveyed. When the gold rush hit and everybody came west, he had to protect his parcel, and he had to do that. He had to get the land surveyed, and when he had it surveyed, he was giving chunks of land away to like pay for things, really. And so in the end, when you start divvying it out to all your kids, and then their kids, and my grandfather was left with, it must have been about a 5-acre parcel in Culver City, and it was a drive-in movie theater. And this was in the 90s, and I was pretty unaware of kind of how it all ended up that way. But at that time, he had been approached by some developers, and he sold the land and reinvested the money somewhere else, and they came in and developed the property into some apartments, and they put in a Machado Street right there.
Okay.
It's And just a side note, it is off of a little street called Sepulveda Avenue that you might have heard of, which happens to be my great-great-grandmother's name.
No way.
Yeah, so,
Oh my gosh.
the street's named after my great-great-grandmother, and the cross street is my great-great-grandfather.
Incredible.
So, pretty
Um,
wild.
it's very wild, totally. I'm also curious if you have any insights what was behind your dad's wanderlust.
Yeah. Ah, man. You know what? Like, I growing up with him and traveling the world with him, that was just his DNA. Like, he wanted to explore, he wanted to go down the unknown road, and it was always find, like, "What's over there? Let's try that. Let's do this. Why not?" Like, it was just that was just him, and, he told me the story. He was literally flipping through the newspaper, him and his buddy, and there was an ad that was asking for someone to drive their car across the country because they were moving to the East Coast, and they needed their car to get there somehow. My dad called up, said, "Yep, I'll drive your car across country," and they were gonna pay him to do it, and they slept in the car on the way to save money and not get hotels, and then when they got to the other side, they were, like, in New Jersey or something, and they're like, "Now what? We got a little bit of cash." They bought tickets. They're like, "Let's just keep going." And it's pretty wild to think about when
Totally.
jump on a boat, land in England, and then they were hitchhiking. It was just a different world back then, right? And they just went for it and they bought he has these photos of him sitting on this beautiful Triumph motorcycle. They all bought Triumph motorcycles. They were like $100, you know? Um, and they started riding all around Europe, Great Britain, just cruising and, uh, and just figuring it out, working little odd jobs here, there. He was a trash man in Australia when he finally ended up in Australia. He was just finding little gigs and making a few bucks and just going for it.
Did did he document any of it through photos?
Yes, I
Okay.
have a whole pile of photos and slides, and before he passed away, I sat with him and we just talked through this whole journey. He, you know, and he just talked about it. So I have all these audio recordings of him talking about it, and so it's kind of my plan to like retrace or put together this whole journey through photos and through all this stuff that I have. I also went and sat with his best friend who did the whole journey with him, who lives in Australia. Last year when I went down there, and we met up and he brought this whole box of stuff. He
Wow.
had like pamphlets from the boats that they were on, and it's like, "What? This is that, and this is that." And it was just like really, really cool journey. And I listened to all your stuff that you do with Dick Metz, and it was about the same time, and I hear this, like, Dick's whole story and his whole just like, when you asked about my dad and what inspired him, like, man, I think it was just that was, like, something you could do at that time. Just hit the road with a backpack and just explore places. People were so inviting and so welcoming, and they would just bring you in, and you could just find little odd jobs and work here and go to the next spot and the next spot, and someone was going here, "Oh, jump in with us." "Yeah, alright." So
Did I know you said that he started surfing in Santa Monica prior to the trip. Was he surfing throughout the trip? Did he get to
he
surf a
was.
bunch of iconic waves?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, a lot of the time in Europe, I don't think Europe was really a surf destination. He was he was more looking at the mountains, and they were skiing. They were in
Okay.
Austria, and they were hitting the snow. But when he got to Australia, that's when the photos that I have photos of him surfing in the Gold Coast and all these different places, and these beautiful old longboards, big D fins on them, and just classic stuff.
Amazing. Because yeah, even though surfing was kind of in its inception in those eras, it was happening remotely in different parts of the world. There weren't a lot of guys, I think, that got to see it in its various locations, like Dick or your dad, you
Yeah.
know? So that's pretty unique experience.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy to think back, try to put yourself in those in their shoes and what they were seeing and how surfing was, invited into that time. And oh man, it's just and like how much empty space there probably was. And like it's probably such a beautiful, beautiful time, really.
Well, conversation about empty space and your family's legacy in LA. What year did you land in Cardiff?
Landed in Cardiff in 1976, 77-ish. Yeah.
So you've been there ever since, so almost 50 years?
Yeah. That's weird, man. Yeah.
What was it like back then?
Oh, man. A sleepy little beach town, right? Just a lot of little one-story, you know, 800, 900 square foot houses, like just little beach shacks. And, if you went east of the 5, which is about not even a mile away, there was nothing. There was just
Wow.
rolling hills. And there was a lot of space. Like I remember as a kid when I was 12, and that would have been in the 80s, we would just drive, we'd load up our motorcycles and drive like 2 miles inland, and we could unload our motorcycles and then just ride out into all this empty land. And it was just so different. Like now it's like I can go to that same spot where I unloaded my motorcycles and it's just homes as far as you could
Yeah.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting changes.
Yeah, and I wanna kind of continue revisiting the question of environmental stewardship throughout the course of the
Mm.
conversation with real estate and development in mind, um, because you've seen so much of that change and your family certainly has as well. But do you remember where there was a first moment where you had kind of an environmentalist activist thought or a concern towards environmental protection?
Um, I think back, both my mom and my dad, I was raised in a vegetarian household in the 80s, like very health conscious, which you think back to the 80s and those were basically like hippies, right?
Yeah.
Like we were going to these like natural food stores that were like tucked way back in these little strip malls, and they would have these buckets of, like bulk food, what you see
Yep.
now at Sprouts. And like I remember going in there and they didn't have real chocolate, you're a kid. You're like, where's the candy bars? And like, I want some sugar. And like, it was just these funny little memories of, we didn't eat red meat in our house. We ate fish and a little bit of chicken, but my mom was just very health conscious. It was lots of salads and fresh vegetables. We had a garden. And I think being raised like that, I had this understanding of food and where food comes from and its origins, and like eating right and eating healthy and take care of yourself. Um, and I know that kind of doesn't answer your question directly, but I do think it plays into it in the long run, because when I was in high school, and this kind of shifting a little bit, is when I became part of the Surfrider Foundation Clean Water Task Force, I believe it was called back then. And we had a surf class, and they had asked our surf class to take water samples at Cardiff Reef. So, you know, before we got to paddle out, we had to take down these little vials, and we would take samples at Cardiff, and we would take one from, you know, the ocean directly in front of where we surfed, and then we would go in the lagoon. And when the lagoon was blocked up, we would, hold your nose, go in there. It was it was pretty disastrous, and take samples. And then we got to understand. what was happening. We would get these results back from Surfrider, and it was like, "Hey, that lagoon is in really bad shape." And it was like this red light would go off like, "Oh, okay. So when that thing blows open and that water's flowing out right into the lineup, like probably not a good idea to be out there." And when you're seeing the actual numbers of like the normal ocean water is, I wish I had the actual figures, but
Yeah.
it'd be like 400 parts per million, let's say. And that'd be, oh, and in there it was, 20,000 parts per million. It was multiplied crazy. So,
That Blue Water Task Force is still enacted today, by the way, and still doing that
wow,
exact work.
love it.
I know.
And I honestly think we were one of the first groups of kids where they reached out on in a scholastic level to surf classes. Like, oh, this is cool. These kids are at the beach, which, and that was early on. It would have been like late 80s, I'm going to say. And I'm guessing that's probably when it started.
Amazing. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
as an organization, Surfrider started, I want to say in 84, but then Blue Water Task Force was shortly thereafter. So yeah,
Yeah.
right in that zone. Um, it's also such a savvy way to imprint upon young people, you know, the direct
Yeah.
effects of those things. So smart on their part. I was also going to ask you though, that San Alejo Lagoon,
Mm.
um, I have seen stories over the years about pollution in it, but I know it's a nature reserve. Have they done a good job of preserving it, or have you seen it be more detrimentally affected in your time that you've been there, or have they actually done a pretty good job of preserving it?
To be honest, I think it's in a better state now than it was back then. Back then, it was, from my memory, it was closed more than it was open.
Yeah,
And it's definitely, when it's closed, it's unhealthy. There's no there's no flow. Everything's stagnant. Everything's just cooking in there. And they've done a really good job of coming in and, this I'd say past couple of years, they really focused on dredging and making the channels where the water is actually getting to the ocean,
okay,
really deep and flowing. And it's beautiful back there. It's, from what I hear, like, it is one of the number one bird sanctuaries, and people travel from all over all over the United States to come to go bird watching in the Santa Leo Lagoon. So,
amazing.
from what I've seen, I think it's in a better place now because of its just constant activity and flow, and they've kept it in a really good state, and I think that's a perfect way to kinda showcase it, is that because of that, you have this amazing culture, bird watching culture that is just migrating to it.
Yeah. I think it's a success story. You know, I mean, while
Yeah.
so much of San Diego was developed in the way that you described already, to be able to keep little pockets like that, I think became increasingly important and valuable. And so it would make sense that it would have gotten overrun and polluted initially, but then recognizing the value of keeping it pristine um, becomes important. And yeah, I think for the record, I think it's like 1,000 acres or so, and there's hiking
Mm.
trails
Yeah.
and all sorts of little, microcosms of activity like you described that are highly
Yeah.
important to a lot of different people. So,
Yeah. It's really cool. Like the hikes, they've just finished in the last couple of years that you can do a hike around the entire lagoon, and I think it's like
okay,
a 3-mile loop, and it's amazing. Like, it is so cool. It's just, you can cut through the middle of it, and they've got little bridges, and it syncs up and loops all the way. You can walk all the way down to Seaside Reef from Cardiff Reef, which is about a mile, and then you go all the way back out to the I-5, and then it kind of goes underneath and links back up all the way around. It's cool.
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, back to your youth and actually back to your dad too. It might have been in the Momentum Generation documentary that alerted me to how important he was as a kind of parental guardian for the surfers of that generation.
Mm.
Is that true? I mean, can you talk more about that? Was he playing that role for passing surfers that were passing through?
Yeah. When we settled in Cardiff, we settled into a beautiful little piece of property, and it was pretty spacious. I think we ended up it had like 3 or 4 bedrooms, and me and my brother kinda lived there, but we always had people coming through. It was like
Yeah.
we always laughed and called it like Hotel Machado, right? It was like because you think about when my dad was traveling around the world, he was taken in by all these people and built all these friendships all over the world. So we had people coming constantly from all over the planet, and it was awesome. It was just cool. You had these interesting characters that kind of came through, and then on top of that, I started competing in surf contests, and you've got all these kids traveling down from Ventura or, even like Huntington, whatever, like up north. They come down and it's 2-day contests. They're like, oh, we need a place to crash. And it was like our house became the place to crash. And we just have sleeping bags and futons all over the living room and, the Malloys, the Doonan brothers, you name it. Like it was just there was just be packs of kids just all crashed in and stoked, man. Like it was just a different time. There was no phones. We were all just sitting around, just being kids, playing games, ping pong. We had a ping pong table in the garage that was just heated. And um and that kind of led to my dad being like, I don't know, he just made this connection with so many of these kids that he was like, hey, maybe I'll just coach the US team, you know? And he jumped in and started coaching the US team. And we traveled to Barbados, we went to Venezuela. And this was you're talking like Kelly, Taylor Knox, Pat O'Connell, Shane Stoneman, Pete Rocky, uh, CC Betchloff, like Evan Slater, like we had just you name it, like all these guys. My dad was kinda like he was there was, like, father figure that was taking all these kids. I mean, imagine that responsibility, like, taking this group of kids, like, aged, like, 14 to 18, you know, just rambunctious, wild little animals, and, like, trying to keep them contained and, like, "All right, guys, we gotta surf in this contest," like, "Hey, you over here, get back over," and I don't know, he just had this way of, he was very relaxed, but very don't cross the line, right? And
Yeah.
everybody learned that real quick, and everybody had this level of respect for him because he did let the reins out, but he reeled them back in, and he just created this environment that everybody prospered in and did really well, and we ended up having great amateur careers just traveling with great kids and all these funny journeys um and it just carried on really into the momentum generation really isn't that kind of led then we all started turning pro and it was still the same thing. It's like, Kelly, you're like making a ton of money but he's still coming and crashing on our floor. You know what I mean? Like that was like that was you just kept doing that kind of stuff because you wanted to be part of the ping pong battles and you wanted to, you wanted to be sitting around at the dinner table with the whole family having a home cooked meal. That was
Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting through that lens. Your dad was a linchpin that had he not played that role, the whole thing, the whole momentum generation and the success of the surfers that you already named might have not happened in the way that it happened.
yeah, because then it naturally because of this bond that it kind of created, then it like that naturally just led to Hawaii. And when we got to Hawaii and then there was Benji's house, we all just like dove straight in and it was like we all had to kind of stay as this little nucleus. And maybe that was a big part of it, you know? My dad was kind of the beginning of that, creating that little snowball.
Amazing. He doesn't
Yeah.
get the credit he deserves. And maybe didn't want the credit either, but I am glad to hear that you have a bunch of the resources of his travels that, because that is in and of itself super interesting, and it'd be cool if that did take shape at some point and see the light of day.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, he passed away 2 years ago, and it's like we miss him so much, and it's like I go back and listen to those recordings, and it's like, "Oh, man," like, I just can't wait. It was just too soon, and I've just been waiting for the moment where I can really dive back into it, and I have so much stuff. I'm gonna have to unravel it all and
Yeah.
just take my time, and maybe I'll have to, retrace his steps one day.
Well, that's what's interesting to me is your identity being connected to the drifter persona
Right.
and how much that was embedded in his life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, when I was born, like, I have all these images of us, traveling around all over Australia and, like, camping and doing all these crazy adventures, and we're in the mountains, we're skiing, and we're down at the beaches, and we're like, we didn't sit still. We were just up and moving and going, and because my mom was British, we were definitely traveling to Europe, and, I'm out in the streets playing cricket with kids in England. I mean, there was a lot of culture, you know, brought into our lives at a young age.
Just as a total side note, that image of you as a baby throwing the shaka, did he pose your fingers
Uh,
that way?
Dude, that's so funny. I know. I know Taylor Steele. I feel like Taylor Steele might have manipulated that photo in some way, but I'm like, bro, that was so long ago that you couldn't even do that stuff back then, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it's pretty legendary.
So do you think your dad manipulated your hand, or was it just total like
Just was just throwing shakas back then. Probably.
yeah,
I don't know. You know?
it's it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's iconic actually. Um, so I kind of want to avoid discussion of your time on tour.
Cool.
Um,
It's boring.
you've talked about it ad nauseum, and I feel like every podcast you've done, that's kind of what it's about.
Well,
But
I'll tell you what, let me sum it up for you real
okay,
quick. My time on tour was so ultra focused on being a competitor and like, oh, like, I didn't even pay attention to where I was or anything around me. So, like, I didn't do anything fun. Like, you went to an event, you surfed, and if you lost, you left. And it was like, not until I started going back to these places after I was done competing was I able to, like, oh, wow, this is cool. Like, let's go cruise around and check stuff out.
yeah,
That's just how you were when you're on tour. It's a pretty, like, ugh, makes me like, it's a boring lifestyle.
it's almost a
But
waste of travel.
yeah, but looking back, that's what you kind of had to be that way.
Sure.
It's a job. Like, you literally are going there. You've got 5 new boards. You got to test the boards. Okay, where are we eating? You find the one spot you like to eat, and then you just surf, eat, contest. Like, and you've got these blinders on, and you're not looking out beyond anything. And it's wild.
So my question then about that is, I've heard that you're super competitive, and it seems to run in contrast to the way that I view you.
Yeah.
But when you were entering that scene, um, did you actually have like an innate desire to beat the other guys, or was it just the only way to make a living as a pro surfer at the time?
It's weird. I think there's 2 answers to that question. Um, I grew up in a competitive household. All right. My mom played competitive tennis. She traveled like the country with a doubles partner, and was like, I was taken up to the tennis court all the time, and I was out there playing tennis, and I was competing in tournaments, and then I played travel soccer. I played baseball. Like, I was in it. My brother, he was a full jock. He was football, basketball, baseball. He ended up going to college, playing at Sonoma State. It's like, we were a very sport-minded family, and competitiveness was just in it, and it was like even like I always go back to the ping pong table. That's where all matters were settled, right? You took it out on the ping pong table, and it's a beautiful thing. Um, so when I started competing surfing, that was there was no real free surfer road. That wasn't
Yeah.
like you weren't like, "Oh yeah, that's where I'm headed. I'm heading for that spot." It was you had to be competitive and you had to be on the NSSA national team or and then be on the US team and go to the world contest and then make it on the tour and the only way but you did that was by winning. You had to beat other people. And you can't just go out and surf down the beach by yourself and win contests. You had to get amongst it. There was no priority back then. You're battling for waves and getting into it, like heated. And so look, when I got on tour, actually, I remember when I got my first contract thrown at me from Gotcha. I graduated from high school and I was like, okay, this is it, man. Like these guys are want to pay me a significant amount of money to go out there and do battle. Like and one of their biggest things was you got to go to Hawaii and do good in Hawaii. I'm like, me? I'm like a skinny little kid from Cardiff. Like I have no chance. Like I can't even surf. I can barely surf swamis when it's 8 foot, you know? Like I was scared of surf, like I was just,
Yeah.
it wasn't in my DNA. And so I remember going to Australia and I was doing the pro junior and I literally walked out on this headland and I just sat out there for a few hours and I was like contemplating like, do I want to be a pro surfer?
Wow.
Like, do I want to take this on? Like, it's kind of a crazy thought. And I ended up just being like, I'll give it a shot. Why not? See what happens in this 3-year contract that I got. Let's give it a shot. I'll go out, I'll do my best. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go to school. I'll go to college, you know. That was always my mom was she was a teacher and education was always super important to her and she was always pushing me like you got to take college courses, like
Mhm.
and so I was kind of on that path already. So, I gave it a shot. Here we are.
You got enough success in those 3 years to,
Yeah.
continue a career beyond that.
Yeah, I kept it rolling. Kept it
Um,
rolling.
okay, so final question about the competitive thing.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything that in hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, is there anything that you would have done or could have done differently or implemented that would have won you a world title?
Yeah. That's a loaded question, Dave.
I
Whew,
know.
hit me hard. Um, I didn't even finish answering the last question. I did struggle. There became a time where I had to come up with this like alter ego, right? And I had got it pretty well tuned in to a place where I would just do my thing at the, pre my event or pre heats. And as soon as I walked up to the the check-in table and I got that jersey, it was almost like Clark Kent went into the phone booth kind of moment, right? When I put the jersey on, I had to like switch my mindset of like I need to go into a competitor mode, like whatever that meant, like just surf hard, aggro, like paddle bout, whatever it was, like, and that's just naturally wasn't in me. I had to come out of me and
Yeah.
like turn on this animal competitive aggression that I didn't necessarily end up liking in the end.
Mm.
It became more and more difficult as time went on. So, um, to answer your question, like I know that probably became my fault in the end of potentially winning a world title. But the funny part is that I actually am grateful that it was my fault, right? Because it kind of pushed me in a direction. When you look at the 1995 semifinal heat with Kelly, you have the most competitive human on on the planet, the best surfer on the planet, um, and then you have me, and like I was trying to be as competitive as him. We were all trying to keep up with Kelly, and I that was as close as I ever could get, besides the ping pong table. I kicked his ass, but I was right there, and I was doing it, and then there was this moment where, uh, there's all these stories like, "Oh, I should have kicked out and I could have got priority," but no, the heat was already determined at that stage. When I rode that wave and I gave him a high five, like everything had already been kind of determined, and it was too far along in the heat that it was already settled.
Okay.
And I was literally just more excited at the fact that I was standing in a perfect 10-foot barrel at pipe. And that was already a success story, being able to surf pipe, right? Because everyone wrote me off for so long. And I was like, here I am fighting for a world title, standing in this perfect barrel at pipe. And there's my friend. And the jersey came off for a minute. And I went back into this, just me. Hey, what do you do when you're surfing with your friends and you just stood in a barrel and your friend's on the shoulder? Like, yeah, of course you're going to high five him. Like, that's what you do. That's what anyone who surfs would do. And at that moment, I think that divided me from, let's just say, like the Kelly sort of human to like, it pushed me down a path, and it connected me with people in a different way. Like so many people, like the ripple effect from the people who were on the beach and the stories that were told and everything that got kind of like passed down, like people still come up to me this day. Like that was it, man. Like the soul doggy guy that surfs Swamis, felt that. Like he doesn't ever want to wear a jersey. He never wants to compete in a contest, but he was like, dude, I heard what you did. I love that. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like it just was this crazy moment that connected me with surfing in a different way that I didn't even realize it at the moment. And
Sure.
it took years to finally kind of figure that all out. And it just really opened up a whole new pathway for me to explore.
And it sounds like what you were saying as well is the Clark Kent thing, having to put on that facade was so in stark contrast to your natural state of being that it was kind of eroding your soul a little bit. And like to take it the next step further to a world title would have been an erosion too far, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think I just can't imagine all the responsibilities and everything that goes with having a world title. And like, I am so satisfied and proud of what I accomplished with my time as being a competitor, and everything that it did for me is just, I'm just so grateful that where it led me because
Yeah.
I got to. And it was crazy because when I stopped doing the tour, it wasn't by choice. I finished I finished the year in 2000 ranked third. And I had a few rough years before that, and I had kind of gotten myself back on track. And that was the year I won the Pipe Masters, which was like the highlight of all highlights for me. Um, and the next year I had an injury. There was 9/11. The year was cut short, and I didn't make it back on tour because of a wild card voting thing. And I was pretty bummed out. All the surfers voted. It was strange. Um, But I just remember my dad, I was like, what, what do I do now? I have not, like, I don't have a path. That was my only path. And my dad just going, I know you feel like crap, but something good will come out of this. And I just remember being like, how could you say that? Like, no way. There's nothing good about this. But he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, um, your daughters are actually early in their careers balancing professional surfing, different professional surfing than it looked like when you were doing it, but professional surfing and modeling. Do they ever ask you for advice? In the way that you asked your dad, do they ask you for advice on how to navigate it?
uh, yeah, I think in subtle ways. I'm always
Okay.
it's a really challenging road, right? Like my son is 12 and I I I could tell him like, I remember back in his early days of like learning how to surf and I'd be like, "Hey bud, your leash is on the wrong foot." And he'd look at me like, "Pff, whatever." And some random dude could walk up to him on the beach and tell him his leash is on the wrong foot and be like, "Oh, okay, thanks, man," and switch it over. So there's this like parenting thing that we all deal with in the old parenting world where it's like, I kind of got it figured out. You need like, you need a buddy and you need to be able to go, "Hey, go tell my kid his leash is on the wrong foot. Tell him to widen his stance a little bit." Like all these little things, right? It's
That's a good
like,
strategy.
yeah, you need a wingman. It's to pass along your messages and your dialogue. So
I can I could understand your daughter's rationale for not asking you for advice just because the game has changed so much,
yeah,
like it's almost an entirely different thing.
totally.
But you also it was blank slate when you were doing it too. So you were having to navigate your own version of just making your way in the world from the amateur years through the competitive CT years all the way through to redefining the career stuff. So,
Hey, trust me, dude. I'm asking them for hints or
are you?
advice. Yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
social media and TikTok. I'm like, what what is this? And like, oh no, Dad, hold on. Let me help you. Like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, when once you were off tour, you talked about riding different styles of surfboards. Um, do you remember the first non-thruster that lit that spark?
Ooh, yeah. That's interesting. It actually started before I got off tour. Um, I realized as I was traveling to all these great places, there was these amazing shapers. So I ordered an MR twin fin from MR, going through Newcastle. Um, there was a guy named Bob Cooper who he was living up near Noosa, I believe at the time, but he made me a single fin. And I just started gathering boards. I started ordering skip fries in the 90s. I had a little collection of skips. So but I could never really devote a lot of time. It was like, oh, I had to maintain this level. And it's like, you're always fine tuning little things to try and get that edge. And so it was when I got off tour, I could finally like, oh yes, I can go ride these boards and really like devote time to them and learn about them. It's like I grew up in a world like my very first board was a single fin and my second board was an Eberly twin fin. And
Hmm.
then it was thrusters from there on out, like the rest of my life. So it's like, there's something there. Like those guys look like they're having fun. Like, what did that feel like? Let's go explore it. And so started writing stuff and then like having to go in to Al's shaping room and be like, "Come on, Al." Al made me a single fin, and that was like pulling teeth. He did not wanna make me a single fin. Al was like, "I see the future. We're going there. We're going to the moon." Right?
Yeah.
And like, I was like, what about the 70s? And he's like, no, that stuff didn't work. We don't go back. He wanted to go forward. So to get him to make me a single fin and then to make me a fish, and I was trying to explore the mid length thing wasn't really a thing back then. So it was like getting longboards, but then I started getting longboards from Donald. I had Skips and Donalds, and it was just that was early 2000s for me when I don't think I rode a thruster for a
Wow.
big chunk of time. And I just loved feeling different fins on a single fin and different different 20s and keels versus an MR versus like, oh, it was all just like, what is happening? This is unbelievable. Like, there's things you could do so good, and then there's things you just absolutely cannot do, right?
Yeah.
So, it was pretty fun. That was an exhilarating time.
Well, that the story about Al Merrick being so resistant to building those boards for you, ultimately, it's funny to hear that because ultimately some of the models that you created with them became hugely successful for them, right?
Yeah, we did the single fin model, and that was very well received. And then we did a fish. And that turned into the biscuit. And the
Yep.
biscuit was something that was a total mistake. It was actually the single fin that had been accidentally cut wrong, that was squashed down to a 5.2, that were like, throw 3 fins on it and just see like this weird thick little platter, like shouldn't work. And it became this amazing surfboard. Like it really kind of opened up this whole world. You have your high performance thruster and you had, like, let's say, like a skip fry fish, and you're like, there's a lot in between here.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of room that we can play around with and go in all these, and we're still exploring it and having fun with it because it just opens up so many lines and different worlds when you start blending like all the different design elements and craziness that goes on, fin placements, and like there's just it's surfboards are just blow my mind.
Yeah. You're right. It's kind of infinite, but still in the lane that you're talking about where the biscuit existed.
Mm.
Um, I feel like I see that DNA in the Firewire models that you have now too.
Yeah,
Like they're all
totally.
kind of in that like alternative shortboard, but increase the fun quotient,
Yeah.
because it's more user friendly, but it's still rippable. So when did you shape your first surfboard?
I shaped my first surfboard in 2000, and it was a single fin. I think I was on this kick of making a concave deck. So I had these like really boxy rails with like a concaved out deck, and it's a horrible surfboard. And I took it to Hawaii, and because I shaped it, I glassed it. I didn't sand it. That scared me. But I tried to do almost everything on the board, and because I did everything, it was going to work. Like regardless, like I would figure out a way to have fun on it no matter what. And it was like there's this connection that happens. Like holding that thing under my arm still to this day, I'm like, yeah. And there's something very unique about that. There's something to be said about that. Making your own surfboard, it's you have this intimate connection already before you even get in the water. And I know, and I've done it, and I know you've done it. And it's like you have this immediate reaction when you pick up a surfboard. And we're surfers are weird. Like we're just weird people. We pick it up and it might feel heavy, or it might feel tail heavy, or the rail might feel a little round. But you're going to judge a surfboard by how it feels right here in your hand, right? Or
Mhm.
you're going to surfboard because it weighed 6 ounces more than the other board, right? And it's these funny little quirks that we all have. Like, but when you do pick up that board and put it under your arm and it just goes, whoa, like this, that is the beginning of a good surfboard. And if you put it under your arm, or let's even step back for a moment. If it's leaning up against the wall and you look at it and go, ah, I like that. There's the light bulb, right? And then the next move is under the arm. And if the under the arm thing goes good, it's probably going to work.
Yeah.
Like chances are you're already paddling out with like this real positive influence,
Yep.
right? So that's us. That's us in a nutshell. We're crazy.
So, so did that first board work in Hawaii?
Yeah, I rode
Okay,
it.
good.
I paddled out at pipe. I got tubed on it on a small day. It was like 4 foot, but I surfed gums on it, Aukai. Like I was gonna make it work no matter what. Like there was some element of fun that was gonna come out of it, regardless of how bad it actually is,
Gotcha.
because it is. It.
W- what was the concept with exploring the concave deck?
I had no idea. I honestly, it's just weird. Yeah, I, Gerlach went through a phase where he was riding boards with concave decks, and Doc was making them, and the rails were like super thin. It was so weird. Yeah, I don't know why I would even think that was a concept. And I remember him saying, like, why would you have a dome deck? You know, like that makes it harder to turn. Like if it's concave, then it's like easier. It should be easier. And I'm like, I'm thinking back now. I'm like, that was a terrible idea.
There, I've seen it done before as well, and I think there are different schools of thought on what its application might be. But what we do know Tom Curran is exploring is just getting his feet closer to the water.
Right. Yeah.
So that, he's doing it on a skimboard.
Hmm.
But that is the concept for him, is like sensitivity close to the water.
Right.
So I guess with a concave deck, you can execute that while still maintaining other traditional volumes and contours.
Yeah. That's something to be said there. Al was always trying to get our boards thinner and thinner, hence the 90s. And I apologize to everyone for the 90s. Um, our surfboards were ridiculously thin and really rockered out because Al was exploring, trying to take us to the moon. He wanted to see our surfing go as far as it could. And you had to go to the farthest extreme before you
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
And that was that time period. We went to the farthest extreme. I have boards that I pick up from that era and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." Like the thinnest tails and noses and I'm like, "How did he even shape these things?" Like there isn't even any foam there.
Yeah.
Like it's wild.
I got to feel up one of Archie's boards from back in that era, like a
Mm,
Patterson with channels and stuff. I was like, I couldn't even sit on this thing. Like I would
yeah.
sink up to my mouth if I was sitting on the thing. It was that small.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Uh,
That era was really difficult. And that was the era when you either rode a shortboard or longboard.
right.
And if you wanted to be a shortboarder, that's what you were riding.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, how do you characterize the style of boards you're doing with Firewire?
oh, hmm, that's a good question. I mean, the word that comes into my mind is fun. Like, I just want people to enjoy being in the ocean, right? Like, you're making a craft that is the goal, I guess I would say, is to have them have an enjoyable experience, right? To go out and feel something. If it's speed or if it's turnability, is like to just go out and play in the ocean and be able to ride waves and catch waves easy and turn. If that's it's like it's hard because everyone wants to do something a little bit different. So you're trying to make this general thing that's going to work across across the board. Um, so I think just overall, man, it's like, dude, we all want to go out and ride waves and come in better people. That's the goal. Like, don't complicate it. Just go have a good time. If you're riding a pipo or if you're body surfing or you're riding a longboard or a mid length or shortboard, like, go have fun.
Um, it's interesting when I look at, so you got the Firewire line of boards, and then you also have Rob Machado surfboards that you still make, you know,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
presumably by hand.
Hmm.
When I look at the boards that are posted on Rob Machado Surfboard's Instagram, they're pointy thrust. It looks like you guys are making pointy thrusters for
We are.
contest kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
That's just
is that
been
just what's showcased, or is that actually kind of mainly what you're focused on?
no, that's just been in the last, I'd say in the last year. Um, there's just been a lot of kids around here who were kind of, it was kind of twofold. There's two things going on. I started making myself a high performance thrusters, right? And I was like giving them to my friends to try out and just to see what that world looked like, but kind of more of an old guy version, a little less rocker, a little more thickness in the nose and paddle ability. And I was like, okay, cool. And then like kids start to notice like, whoa, you're riding a thruster, like what? And it's obviously a different surfing and it's different lines. And so, man, I was like, well, like, why don't we make you one? Like, well, let me see your board. What are you riding? Right. And these are like 90s short boards they're riding. And I'm like, man, okay, let's explore that. Let's make you a board. Let's see if it works. And so we started making kids boards and they're stoked. And it's just been this like fun little project of just making boards for these kids that are surfing around here that just are fired up and they're stoked on surfing. And it's like, why not? I'm going to just explore that avenue. I'm still very much, I think more of my focus is on the fun zone,
Yeah.
right? It's like fishes and the seaside and like little mid lengths and fun. But this has been a kind of a cool experiment to go and watch these kids like just go bananas on
Yeah.
these little high performance little shred sticks. It's kind of
Yeah.
rad.
No, they're ripping.
Yeah.
Um, are you doing the laminating?
We have a shop in Oceanside
Okay.
that um, we 760 glassing, and we kind of shape them and glass them out of there, and it's been great, man. Yeah, my boy Julio runs the shop and just cranks boards out for all my custom work pretty much, and comes out of that
Cool.
shop. Yeah,
Sweet. Um, tell me about the Rob Machado Foundation. What was the inception point? What kicked it off?
yeah, man. So my daughter was born in 2001, and we started the foundation in '04. And I think mainly because I got off tour in '01 as well. And I started spending more time at home. I was like, oh, all right, back in Cardiff, spending way more time here. Started thinking about like, okay, where's my daughter going to go to school? She's going to go to the same elementary school that I went to. I started cruising over there and reconnecting. My mom was a teacher there. Um, and I think I was like touring the school for her to go to school. And I realized I just started looking around and they didn't have any recycling. They just didn't have any, like, that was it. That was the one thing. And that just triggered it. And I went, why don't you guys have recycling? Like, and I talked to my manager at the time, Justine, and we were like, let's start a foundation. Had originally worked for Boarding for Breast Cancer and for a long time. And she's like, yeah, I know how to set it all up. Let's do it. And really, the goal was to provide environmental education for kids. And it was pretty broad. We're like, well, that kind of just leaves a lot of room to explore whatever we want to. And we used Cardiff School as kind of our flagship, right? We went in there, we created a recycling program. all right, that worked. We took it like, I remember the stats. It was cool. It was like they were filling like 8 trash cans full of trash at every lunch period. And that 8 went down to 2 of trash. And then they had all these others were recycles. It was paper, it was plastic, it was, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So then you try to like repeat that. Let's take that to another school and another school, another school. And then we explored a gardening program. We instigated a gardening program, and that became a class where the kids would come out during class, and we had a teacher teach them about growing their own food. And man, I had parents coming up to me like going, this is my favorite one. This lady came up to me and she goes, I just want to thank you for helping my child eat lettuce. I laughed. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, my kid would not touch anything green his whole life until he went into gardening class. He grew his own lettuce and he picked it. He brought it home. Said, Mom, I want to make a salad. This is my lettuce. I grew it. He made a salad and he ate it. And I was like, that's it. I was worth every second. Like,
Totally.
so, and it evolved over time into, it was actually when I was at Cardiff School, this was a few years later, and I walked by the original drinking fountain that I remember drinking out of. And I'm like, no way. There's this little thing attached to the wall that you get down and drink out of. And I'm like, you guys drink out of these things still? And everyone just looked at me like I was crazy. No way. It's disgusting, right? I started looking around and every kid had a plastic water bottle. And I'm like, okay, this is wrong. This is, and you know, back then, this is when the stainless steel water bottle was really new. There was no Yeti. There was no,
Yeah.
there was very few companies making them. And it was kind of like, it took a little time, and there's definitely no like refill stations. You were getting like the Sparklets delivery bottle.
Yep.
And so it was kind of like we had to wait for things to evolve, but eventually we got to a place where we started installing refill stations into schools. And we did one at Cardiff School, and we gave every kid a reusable water bottle. And it was like, there you go. Let's eliminate plastic from the campus. We don't need it. Now you have your bottle, you bring it to school, you get to refill it. And that was when it really kind of the light bulb went off. And we started doing, I mean, every school around here, and it started growing, expanding. Once one school hears about the other school, the rival school just got a refill station. We want one. And it kind of took off, and it's grown and grown. And now we've partnered with San Diego Unified School District, and we've been handing out water bottles to kids all over San Diego County. So it's been cool, and installing refill stations.
And obviously those refill stations, I feel like are more, they're definitely more sanitary, but the water that's going through them is probably filtered better than what was going through the public system before, right? So there's less transfer of disease and sickness and illness and all that sort of thing too.
Absolutely. And look, when you go to a high school nowadays, I don't know the last time you've been on a high school campus, but it's all vending machines. So kids are forced to buy water. Like, it's like being in an airport. You're like, really? I got to pay $4 for a bottle of Dasani water? Like, that's ridiculous.
That is
right?
ridiculous.
Like, you're talking about high school kids that are like scraping, money out of their couch to, buy a burrito, and you got to buy water at school. It's like, no, like water should be free at school. Like, and it should be good water, and you should have you should have access to free water.
I like it. And I also like the way that you deployed it and the conversation that we had earlier about Surfrider's Blue Water Task Force and you getting involved from a young age is when you do it at a young age, it becomes just a part of your way of operating, the way that you go through life. You have the awareness. You saw the cause and the effect. Those kids in those schools are seeing the cause and the effect. And so you're not
Yeah.
really teaching them. You're not, they're not trying to absorb any new, it's just part of life at that point, you know?
Oh yeah. That and the other side effect from that is kids started coming home to their parents and being like, "Why are you buying plastic water bottles?" Because it became part of all of our lives. We're all
Yeah.
guilty at some point, right? You see the case of water bottles, you're like, "Duh, that's so easy." And like every day, put it in my kid's lunchbox. Like, but now it's like kids are coming home like, "Don't buy that crap."
Yeah.
Like just polluting the world, the environment, and me. It's
Yeah.
not even good water.
Right. No, it
Yeah.
isn't. I was at the beach with my kid the other day and there was trash on the beach and he picked it up and he's like, "Daddy, somebody littered." Like, and then I forget how he worded it, but basically he was confused as to
Mm.
why somebody else would litter. And I was
I
like,
love it.
fantastic. Like, what a
Yeah.
great world for you to grow up in. And these are probably conversations they're having at school too. So for all of his friend group to
Yeah.
understand that, because when I grew up, you know, it was commonplace for people to litter. I've seen people throw it out their car window on the freeway, you
Right.
know? So the
Yeah.
times have definitely changed for the better in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I see guys pull into the parking lot at Cardiff and they go around their car and they pick up all the trash and they sweep like the sand back onto the beach, clean up around their car. And I'm like, and I've always done it too. If I'm walking up the beach from surfing and I see a piece of trash, it's like I can't step over it.
No, yeah,
That's it's impossible. So I always just pick stuff up and then I go throw it in the trash can. And like the greatest day is when you see your kid do that.
yep.
And I haven't told him to do that. It's just like he just saw me do it and now he does it as well. So
Well, as you age and you watch your kids grow, how are your values shifting or how are you reallocating your time and your interests?
um I definitely spend more time here in San Diego, still traveling a bit, um, loving shaping and designing boards, um, giving people happiness is what I like to refer to it as. It's like that's what we all get out of surfing. And yeah, and my kids, like definitely a huge priority for me. My son's 12, and it's like having two older daughters um, that are now adults and kind of on with their lives. I look at my son as like, hey man, he's 12. What do I got left? I got another 3, 4 years until he's gonna be like, later, dad. I'm gonna go with my homies and go skate and surf.
Yeah.
So I'm very much just like I'm all in. I'm like at every baseball practice and football game and you want to skate. It's like we're in kind of a hybrid homeschool program. So I'm doing a lot of his homeschooling with him. And so it's been amazing because before you know it, yeah, he'll be hopefully, my daughters still want to hang out with me, which is cool. So if you do it right, it 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 can pan out okay.
Are they nearby?
Yeah. Well, one of them isn't. One of them is living in Reunion Island, going to school. Yeah. Macy.
Amazing.
Yeah. Macy's in Reunion Island. But we do get to see each other quite often. We travel and kind of meet up different places here and there over the course of time. And Rose is living here, still at home when she's home, which I haven't seen her in like a month. She's constantly traveling. She's loving spending a lot of time in Hawaii right now. So she goes over there and hangs out with big group of girl friends and just she's been working a lot over there. And so, yeah. And my son lives here as well. So
Good.
it's good.
Good, good. Revisiting your old haunts in a lot of ways too. So
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Um, we talked early on about your involvement with Surfrider in high school. How has the relationship evolved over the years, and what level of involvement do you have?
Uh, Always a fan of Surfrider. Always when if there's something that we can collaborate with, we've done some collaborative beach cleanups. I've helped with some of their, PSA, some work. Yeah, whenever they need anything from me, I'm there. Sign me up because I've been a fan from the beginning, and I'm still a fan. And I think the work they do is, man, they work on such a big level globally, and the way that they've grown and expanded, and the way that they're helping protect what we love is very, very important.
Yeah, I'm curious, given your perspective of and the amount of time that you've spent with them, do you have any insights or thoughts on how they've remained so successful after 40 years?
I that's a Look, having my own foundation and having it be around for 20 years, it's hard to keep momentum and constantly be fundraising and like, okay, how do we keep this going and how do we keep it fresh? And I think Surfrider, I mean, the amount of issues that are probably brought to them and put on their table and that they have to sift through and like, okay, how do we prioritize these and what's most important? And like, oh man, this one, like, right? I can only imagine. But they've built such a big group, like globally. They have so many people, and there's powerful people. They have attorneys and like really intelligent people that are jumping in and like ready to fight the good fight. So I think they've become a powerhouse. And I think the work is endless,
Yeah.
right? I think it's always going to be there. There's always going to be something to do. So I tip my hat to them always.
Yeah, the endless work thing, I always try to remind people they're only Surfrider's only limited by the amount of people involved and the amount of resources involved. So become a member. Like if you're not a member, you're tripping. When you think
Yeah.
when I've seen the membership numbers, it's far fewer than number of surfers in the water. So if
Wow.
you're a surfer and you're not involved, you're blowing it, you know?
You are blowing it. Like
Yeah.
what's the number of surfers in the world that we say? Is it, we're in the millions, right? Like,
Absolutely. I've seen different numbers, but I forget the most accurate.
yeah. Yeah. I know. And I've heard you guys talk about it before, but like we should be close to that number, Surfrider membership
Totally.
numbers. Like
Yeah.
there's no doubt. Like everyone should just be a member. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree with you more. Um, when you said when you were young, were you your family vegan or vegetarian?
Vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
I don't even know if the word vegan was around back then.
That was my default word, and then I thought that couldn't be right.
Yeah.
So vegetarian. What do you do currently to maintain, in terms of diet and exercise, to maintain your surfing life?
Uh, yeah. I've been on a pretty good program lately. Just maintaining like a really high protein diet, waking up, eating, like I usually have a couple eggs, avocado, maybe some ground turkey for breakfast. I'm in the sauna probably 6 days a week. Um, um, I come out of the sauna. I had a cold plunge, but stopped working. So I just take a cold shower in my front yard, which I think is actually worse than a cold plunge. Like, um, I jump in the shower, and then I just in my yard, I'll go through kind of a routine of like, I actually while I'm in the sauna, I go through like a lot of yoga kind of stretches, and I just do like a whole series of stretches, mainly on like lower body hammies, and just keeping the low back and hamstrings loose. And then when I get outdoors, I just again kind of go through like movement, like just keeping the body loose and moving, and I'll go through a series of 100 push-ups, in sets and pull-ups, trying to get up to, I don't know how many I'm doing right now, but a good number of pull-ups and just squats. And that's kind of my try to do that 5, 6 days a week as just like a baseline. And then
Okay,
after that, if the waves are good, I'm surfing and putting some time in the water because there is no training on land that really prepares you for surfing,
yeah,
right? It's like I just do that. It just makes me feel good, and I have just this sense of like, as my favorite Japanese friend says, like keeping the crust or the rust out of all the joints. When you become static and you stop moving things, everything kind of starts to, crustify.
totally.
So I just want to keep moving, keep things loose, and stay active because, yeah, I feel like I got a lot of years left.
Good for you. How old are you?
52.
Okay, good. Yeah, you got tons of
Yeah.
years left.
Yeah, man. I know. I'm excited. I mean, I'm still right. I can still ride a shortboard, Not that I don't do it a lot, but when the day's right, I love to take out a shortboard and whip a couple turns still. It's fun.
How many surf trips you do in a year at this point?
That's a good question. They've kind of dwindled a little bit. But last year I did a big one. I spent a month in Bali, which was amazing. It was Jack Johnson's 50th birthday, so he put together like a big crew and he played a show down there, and we just all stayed on the cliffs at Ulu's uh and had some epic sessions. Like really, really fun. So that was a highlight last year. But yeah, I'll probably do probably 2 or 3 trips a year. Like, yeah.
Where do you still want to travel?
Ooh, man. Gosh, I like warm places, but they're so overpopulated, I feel like. Um, One of my favorite places that I haven't been in a long time is Chile. It's high up on my list of places to go back. It's just so much surf there and so much coastline and so many waves unridden. It's beautiful. Um, yeah,
It's interesting. I was talking to the Surfrider guys on a phone call the other day, and kind of a sad realization was so much of the effects of the Western world,
mm,
the negative effects of the Western world, aren't necessarily felt by your kid or my kid.
yeah,
And then you go travel to Indonesia and you see where all of the junk ends up on the beach, or you go to these third world countries that have become somehow dumping grounds for
yeah,
the Western world's hedonism and gluttony and waste, And I think we in Southern California are almost removed from the visuals a little bit. That
yeah,
when you go see them in that environment, it's kind of like shocking to your system.
yeah. It is extremely shocking. Like I think I was watching something it came across on YouTube or whatever, but they put little trackers on like a TV that got thrown away.
Oh, wow.
And it went from like it went all the way to, like you said, some country where it ended up in this yard. Like it was so weird. You're like, how the heck? And they were taking out this one little element that they were going to use to resell. And it was just this junkyard, but it traveled on a boat, like to another completely other side of the world. It was baffling. You're like,
So crazy.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife just showed me a photo the other day from a trip we did to Bali. And we had gone down into this little community in Bali, and my son, just being my son, he looks like Tarzan. He's got long hair and he's got no shirt on and no shoes. And he just started cruising around and he found all these other Balinese kids. None of them spoke English, but they just started playing this game. They came up with this game where like, I'm a zombie and I'm gonna get you. And there's this most amazing photo of him running down this like little Balinese street in the middle of this village and with all these Balinese kids, and they're all just got the biggest smiles on their face. And he's just like, ah, and I just saw that and I was like, you know, the fact that I'm able to take him to places like that and he gets to see that and see how kids are living on the other side of the world, kind of going off of what you said, I think that's a huge piece of what I've been able to provide to my kids is some sort of perspective of like, hey, this is where we live. Yes, it's Cardiff, it's Southern California, but you don't, it's very important that you understand how the rest of the world lives, and so then you come home and you're a lot more grateful for what we have.
Mindful too of
Yes.
over consumption,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So much of our conversation is focused on the environment that you live in. Could you ever see yourself living Cardiff or leaving Cardiff?
Leaving Cardiff. I yeah, I think I could.
Could you?
Maybe not full time. My wife and I have been discussing this. We've been throwing around the idea of, what does it look like to live in she's Italian. She's like, "Let's go live in Italy for 3 months and then maybe live in Bali for 3 months and then come back to California." Kind of
Yeah.
bounce around, but do chunks of time. Maybe it's longer. Maybe it's 6 months and kind of do 6 months here, 6 months there. Um, and we've kind of always toyed with that idea, and I'm not opposed to it at all. But I think Cardiff will always kind of be like the the default. I
Home
just
base.
the home base it's I don't know. I've set up a really good environment here, and it's very comfortable, and sometimes it's hard to leave.
Yeah.
It's it's very cozy, and there's fun waves all around, and good food and good people, and my family's here, and it's yeah, that's kind of a big one is having family around too. My mom and my brother and his family. So yeah.
Okay. If you could order one surfboard from anybody on the planet, what would you get?
Whew. I just ordered it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
From who?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. I actually don't even know what I ordered. I bumped into Steve Liss and I was like, okay, this is meant to be. I'm longtime fan, admirer. Like I'm copying your design. Like I need one of your boards in my life. I've got skip fishes. I'm assuming it's going to be a fish. He was going to call me. He's like, I'll connect with you and we'll figure it out. But yeah, it was cool. I got to hang and chat and talk story with him. And yeah, so I'm going to get a Stevie Liss fish.
Well
So
done. Yeah, great call. So, I've seen that first of all, Bird Surf Shed has made orders, I think, available. Like you can go through them and get boards from Steve.
yep.
But I've seen some of them in there that have 4 fins.
Yeah,
So it could be like a
totally.
4-fin fish.
I've seen that as well. And I was like kind of intrigued by that. I was like, well, I don't know. I'm excited to have the convo with him to see like you here's me. Like, is there something that you want to make for me? Like, rather than me coming at you like,
Yeah.
this is what I want. Like, what do you think I would be stoked on that a board that you make? So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear as a surfboard shaper if you like that or not, because I think that is the right strategy often is to just approach the shaper and leave it in their hands to a degree.
Yeah. So I'm excited. That'll be fun.
All right, Rob. Well, hey, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to do it and yeah, share your thoughts on all of this.
Thank you for having me, man. That was a lot of fun. It was cool to dig into some history and the present. So
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Rob Machado began his journey with the Surfrider Foundation nearly 40 years ago. The Blue Water Task Force is actually still busy today, taking 7,500 water samples annually and then measuring and tracking bacteria levels at nearly 600 locations. These collections are mostly performed by volunteers. So, like Rob said, the work is endless and you don't need to be an expert to help. You just need to have a heart and an interest in healthy oceans, and without which, of course, our life would not exist as we know it. So please consider becoming a member at surfrider.org because the ocean needs more friends. And of course, be sure to follow all of Rob Machado's work and his surfing exploits on Instagram at Rob_Machado. And of course, thank you, Rob, for the tireless work and an incredible example of stewardship. We appreciate you. My name is David Scales for the Surfrider podcast, brought to you by the Surfrider Foundation. We'll be back next month with an all-new episode, but until then, get involved at surfrider.org.